More Than Travel Buddies, by Solace. Chapter 1, A Map Drawn in Impulse. If enthusiasm were a currency, Hoshino Airi would have been obscenely wealthy by the time she graduated from university in Tokyo. Unfortunately, the job market had a stricter exchange rate. It demanded experience, restraint, and, most insultingly, silence during interviews. Airi possessed none of the three in acceptable quantities. She was, by all measurable standards, gloriously unemployed. But Airi did not consider unemployment a failure. No, she considered it a sabbatical imposed by a world that clearly needed time to catch up with her brilliance. With her days stretching like an indulgent cat in the sun, she filled them with wandering, through crowded shopping streets, quiet shrines, and occasionally, her own wildly embellished stories of travel she had not quite undertaken. Exploration, she often declared to anyone who would listen, and many who would not, is less about distance and more about spirit. This philosophy, while poetic, had yet to pay her rent. It was during one such philosophically rich yet financially questionable afternoon that she decided, on a whim as natural to her as breathing, to visit an old college friend. A change of scenery, she reasoned, would surely inspire her next great life decision. Or at the very least, provide free food. And so, with a small bag and an overinflated sense of adventure, Airi boarded a train bound for the countryside, where time moved slower and expectations clung like humidity. Mizuno Haruka lived in a small farming town nestled somewhere between rolling fields and quiet resignation. Unlike Airi, Haruka had never been accused of taking up too much space in a conversation. She spoke softly, moved carefully, and carried within her a patience that had long since curdled into quiet exhaustion. Her parents worked tirelessly in the fields, their absence a constant presence in the household. As the eldest, Haruka had inherited responsibility rather than freedom. Her younger siblings, aged 2 and 5, were delightful in the way small storms are delightful, from a safe distance. Up close, they were chaos incarnate. Airi, Haruka said gently, attempting to peel a crayon out of her toddler sister's mouth while her brother gleefully attempted to climb a cupboard, "You didn't tell me you were coming." "I like to preserve the element of surprise," Airi replied brightly, already seated comfortably as though she had always belonged there. "Also, I missed you." Haruka paused. The words were simple, but they landed with a weight she hadn't expected. Missed. No one had used that word for her in a very long time. The day unfolded in a curious blend of laughter and quiet observation. Airi spoke, endlessly, enthusiastically, about her travels. About watching sunsets from distant coasts, getting lost in foreign streets, and meeting strangers who changed her life in inexplicably profound ways. Some of these stories were true. Some were emotionally accurate. Haruka listened. At first, she smiled politely. Then, gradually, something in her gaze began to shift, not quite belief, not quite disbelief, but something softer. Something that looked dangerously like longing. "To just leave," Haruka murmured at one point, almost to herself. To go somewhere without being needed all the time. Airi tilted her head, her usual playfulness faltering for a brief, uncharacteristic moment. "You could, you know," she said, lightly. Too lightly. "The world doesn't lock its doors." Haruka smiled, but it did not reach her eyes. Some doors are locked from the inside. By evening, the sky had softened into shades of amber and quiet goodbyes. Airi slung her bag over her shoulder with practiced ease, as though leaving were her natural state of being. "I'm heading out," she announced, cheerful once more. "Next stop, somewhere exciting. Or at least somewhere with good food." Haruka nodded, standing at the threshold of her home, her siblings now miraculously asleep. "Take care," she said. There were many other things she could have said. She said none of them. Airi waved, then turned, disappearing down the narrow path with the same effortless certainty with which she had arrived. The house felt smaller that night. Quieter. Heavier. Haruka lay awake long after the world had settled, her thoughts restless and unfamiliar. Airi's words echoed, not their exaggeration, but their possibility. The world doesn't lock its doors. By morning, something inside her had shifted. Not entirely, not irrevocably, but enough. Enough to make her do something uncharacteristic. Something reckless. Something terrifying. The train doors slid open with a soft, indifferent chime. Haruka stepped inside. Her hands trembled as she clutched her small bag, her heart beating louder than the hum of the tracks beneath her feet. She had left a message, a simple one, sent in the fragile courage of dawn. I want to try. I want to see the world, even if I'm afraid. The train began to move. For 2 stations, she held on. For 2 stations, she believed she might actually do it. And then, fear arrived. Not gently, not kindly. It came all at once, flooding her chest, tightening her breath, whispering every doubt she had ever known. What was she doing? Where would she go? Who did she think she was? By the second stop, her courage had unraveled completely. The doors opened, and Haruka stepped out. The station was quiet, the kind of quiet that made one's thoughts sound louder than they should. Haruka stood there, unsure of whether she had just escaped or failed. Haruka. She turned, and there, slightly out of breath and very much out of place, stood Irie. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Haruka's face lit up, bright, hopeful, immediate. Irie, you came, she exclaimed, her voice trembling with sudden joy. I wasn't sure, but, are you coming with me? Irie froze. This was not how this was supposed to go. She saw the message when she woke up that morning. A wave of guilt hit her, and she hurried, really hurried, to catch a train. It was her fault. Her stories, her careless words, they had led to this. She had to fix it. She had to send Haruka back home, safe and away from all the trouble Irie seemed to bring. She opened her mouth, closed it. Haruka was looking at her like she was something steady, something real, something worth following. And Irie, who had built entire worlds out of exaggeration, suddenly found herself unable to speak a single honest word. Instead, she smiled, brightly, recklessly. Of course I am, she said. Because apologizing would have been the right thing to do. But this was something else entirely. Moments later, they were seated side by side as the train began to move once more. Toward somewhere unknown, together. Chapter 2, A Hill, a Storm, and Something Unspoken. The train carried them farther than either of them had planned. By the time they stepped off, they found themselves in Kamikawa, a quiet little town tucked away from the rush of cities, where time seemed to move at its own gentle pace. The town was known for one thing, a very old fort that stood proudly on top of a hill, watching over everything like a silent guardian of forgotten stories. It looks mysterious, Irie said, shading her eyes as she gazed up at the hill. It looks far, Haruka replied honestly. Irie grinned. Even better. They found a small inn near the station, simple but warm. The owner gave them a curious look. 2 girls, slightly out of breath, carrying more excitement than luggage, but asked no questions. Their room was small, with 2 neatly arranged beds and a window that opened to the quiet streets below. Haruka stood near one bed, hesitating. We're really doing this, she murmured. Irie flopped onto the other bed dramatically. Of course we are. This is the beginning of our grand adventure. Haruka smiled, though her heart fluttered for reasons she did not dare name. The next morning, they set out early for the hill. The path was long and winding, surrounded by tall trees and the soft sounds of nature. Sunlight filtered through the leaves, dancing along the trail as if guiding them forward. At first, they walked in comfortable silence. Then Irie began talking, and once she began, she did not stop. So, Irie said, walking backwards for a moment just to face Haruka, tell me something I don't know about you. There's a lot you don't know about me, Haruka replied softly. Perfect. Start anywhere. And somehow, Haruka did. She spoke about her dreams, quiet dreams she had never shared before. About wanting to see the ocean properly, not just in pictures. About wanting a life where she could choose what to do with her own time. Irie listened, not with her usual playful interruptions, but with something quieter. Something more attentive. You've been hiding all that, Irie said, genuinely surprised. That's amazing. Haruka blinked. Amazing. Yeah, Irie nodded. You're braver than you think. Haruka didn't know how to respond to that. But something warm settled in her chest. They walked for hours, though it never felt tiring. Every now and then, they would stop by the side of the trail to rest. They shared the simple food they had packed, rice balls, a few snacks, and more laughter than either of them expected. Irie noticed something curious. Haruka never complained. Not once. Are you secretly superhuman? Irie asked, narrowing her eyes playfully. Because I'm at least 40% sure I should be more tired than you. Haruka laughed softly. I just don't mind this. Irie stared at her for a moment longer than necessary. She didn't say it out loud, but she liked being here with Haruka more than she had expected. What Haruka didn't know was that this was Irie's first trip like this. Her stories, her confidence, they painted a very different picture. Irie made it sound like she had traveled the world alone, fearless and free. The truth was, this was her first time. And somehow, she wasn't scared. Not with Haruka beside her. Of course, Irie never missed a chance to be herself. Which meant teasing. A lot of teasing. You're blushing again, Irie said, leaning in closer than necessary. I'm not, Haruka replied quickly, turning away. Irie gently tugged at her cheek. You definitely are, Irie. What? It's cute. Haruka's face turned even redder. Sometimes Irie would nudge her lightly while walking. Sometimes she would whisper something mischievous just to see Haruka react. And Haruka always did. Every touch, every word, it stirred something deep inside her, something she had tried to ignore for a long time. She had always liked Irie. Even back in college. But Irie had always seemed so bright, so free, like someone from a different world. Someone Haruka could never reach. So she kept it hidden. Locked safely in her heart. Because saying it out loud felt impossible. Irie, of course, noticed none of this. Or perhaps she noticed something, but misunderstood it completely. She only saw Haruka's flushed cheeks and shy reactions. And she found them endlessly amusing. Which, unfortunately for Haruka, only made things worse. By the time they reached the top of the hill, the sky had begun to soften into evening. The old fort stood there, quiet, weathered, and beautiful in its own forgotten way. And the sunset, it painted the sky in shades of gold and orange, stretching endlessly beyond the horizon. They sat side by side, watching in silence. For a while, everything felt perfect. Then Haruka's expression changed. Irie, she whispered. There was something fragile in her voice. I left them, she said, her eyes fixed on the fading light. My family, I just left. The weight of it finally caught up to her. Irie turned to her, concern replacing her usual lightness. Call them, she said gently. Tell them you're okay. Haruka nodded, quickly reaching for her phone. No signal. She tried again. Still nothing. The silence around them suddenly felt heavier. It's getting late, Irie said after a while, glancing at the darkening sky. We should stay here tonight. Haruka looked surprised. Here, trust me, Irie said confidently, already opening her bag. I'm fully prepared. She pulled out a small tent and camping equipment, items she had bought on a whim because they were cheap and looked cool. Haruka watched, slightly amazed, as Irie somehow managed to set everything up. They built a small fire, cooked a simple meal, and sat close to keep warm. For a moment, it felt like a scene from one of Irie's stories. Except this time, it was real. They went inside the tent soon after. The night was quiet, too quiet. Then, sometime past midnight, the wind howled. The temperature dropped suddenly, and without warning, a hailstorm crashed down upon them. The tent shook violently. Irie. Haruka's voice trembled. I know, Irie shouted back, trying to hold it steady. But it was no use. A strong gust tore through, and the tent collapsed, parts of it flying away into the darkness. They ran. Through the cold, the rain, the sharp sting of hail. Toward the fort. They found shelter under a broken arch. Barely enough to protect them. The storm raged on. Lightning split the sky, illuminating everything for a brief, terrifying second. They were drenched, shivering, breathless. Without thinking, Irie pulled Haruka close. Tightly. It's okay, she said, her voice firm despite everything. I've got you. Haruka froze for a moment. Then slowly, she stopped shivering. There was warmth. Not from the weather. From Irie. Something steady. Something safe. Irie held her closer, a strange sense of responsibility settling in her chest. She didn't fully understand it. But she knew one thing. She wouldn't let anything happen to Haruka. The storm passed eventually. The night stretched on, long and unforgettable. By morning, the world felt different. Quieter, softer. They gathered what little equipment remained and began their way down the hill. Neither of them spoke much. But something had changed. Something neither of them could quite name yet. A feeling, new, and impossible to ignore. Chapter 3, Warm Water, Unspoken Words. By the time they reached Kamikawa again, the town looked exactly the same. Quiet streets, slow wind, a few early shopkeepers arranging their goods as though nothing remarkable had happened. But for Irie and Haruka, everything felt different. They walked side by side, their steps slower now, their energy drained from the long night. Their clothes were still slightly damp, their hair a mess, and their silence unfamiliar. Irie stretched her arms with a groan. "Well," she said, forcing brightness into her voice, that was definitely not in the travel brochure. Haruka gave a small smile. It faded quickly. She couldn't stop thinking about it. The storm, the fear, the cold, and then, Irie's arms around her, tight, warm, safe. Haruka's fingers curled slightly at her sides as the memory replayed again and again, vivid and unrelenting. Her heart reacted each time as though it were happening all over again. It was unbearable, so she did the only thing she knew how to do. She stayed quiet. Irie noticed. Of course she did. She always noticed when something changed, she just didn't always understand why. "You're unusually silent," Irie said, glancing sideways at her. "Did the storm steal your personality?" Haruka shook her head quickly. "No, I'm just tired." Irie slowed her steps. Tired. Or, regretting. The thought slipped in before she could stop it. Haruka had left everything behind, her home, her family, her responsibilities. Maybe now, after everything, she was starting to realize what she had done. Irie's chest tightened slightly. This was her fault. They found a small place to sit near the roadside. Haruka stared down at her hands. "I keep thinking about them," she said softly. Irie didn't interrupt this time. "My parents, my brother, my sister," her voice wavered. "They must be worried." Irie nodded gently. "Then call them." Haruka hesitated. "But what if?" "Hey," Irie said softly, her tone different now, steady, careful. "It's okay. You don't have to pretend with them." That was new. No teasing. No exaggeration. Just honesty. Haruka looked at her, surprised. Then slowly, she took out her phone. This time, there was a signal. Her hands trembled as she dialed. It rang. Once. Twice. Then, Haruka. Her mother's voice broke through, filled with panic and relief all at once. And Haruka broke. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, her voice shaking uncontrollably. "I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to, I just..." Her words tangled with her tears. "I just wanted to try something, I didn't think, I'm sorry." Irie looked away, giving her space. But her chest felt heavy. Haruka wasn't meant for this kind of chaos. Not the kind Irie brought. After the call, Haruka sat quietly, wiping her eyes. "They weren't angry," she said softly. "Just worried." Irie smiled gently. "That means you're loved." Haruka nodded. But the guilt didn't disappear completely. "All right." Irie clapped her hands suddenly, standing up. "New plan." Haruka blinked. "Plan? Yes. Step 1, we stop looking like survivors of a natural disaster." "We do." Step 2, Irie continued, pointing dramatically down the street, "Bathhouse." Haruka froze. A bathhouse. Of course. We need to clean up. And relax. And not smell like tragedy. "I don't smell like..." Irie leaned in slightly. "You kind of do." Haruka turned red instantly. The bathhouse was warm, quiet, and filled with drifting veils of soft steam that blurred the edges of everything. And for Haruka, it felt like a place where her composure might quietly dissolve. "I think I might pass out," she whispered, clutching her towel a little too tightly. "You're just bathing," Irie said, amused, stepping forward with effortless ease. "Not climbing another mountain. That's not the problem." Irie tilted her head. Curious. "Then what is?" Haruka looked at her, and immediately looked away. "Nothing. In Japan, it was nothing unusual. Women bathed together like this all the time, without hesitation, without embarrassment. It was simple, natural. for everyone else. But for Haruka, nothing about this felt simple. The moment they stepped inside, her thoughts scattered completely. The warmth wrapped around her skin like a quiet embrace. The soft sound of water echoed gently. And Irie was right there. Too close. Too real. Too much. Irie, on the other hand, seemed completely at ease. She moved naturally, unbothered, as though the space belonged to her. She tied her hair up loosely, exposing the graceful line of her neck, a few damp strands clinging softly to her skin. Haruka's eyes betrayed her, just for a moment, then another. She noticed the way water traced along Irie's shoulders, how the steam softened her outline, how there was something unguarded, almost gentle in her expression when she wasn't speaking. Irie looked different here, quieter, softer, beautiful in a way Haruka had never allowed herself to notice before. Her breath caught. Don't stare, she told herself. She didn't listen. You're doing it again, Irie said suddenly, her voice light but edged with curiosity. Haruka startled. Doing what? Thinking too much. I'm not. Irie stepped a little closer. Haruka froze instantly. The space between them felt smaller now, filled with warmth and something unspoken. Your face says otherwise, Irie murmured, her voice softer than before. Haruka's heart stumbled. I don't know what you mean, she whispered. But she did. Desperate to escape the moment, Haruka stood up abruptly. I need to, she gestured vaguely, not even sure what she meant. Her foot slipped. The world tilted. She was falling. Irie reacted instantly. She reached out and caught her. Strong, steady, her hands finding Haruka, pulling her close before she could hit the ground. For a brief second, they were pressed together, too close, too sudden, and then, their lips met. It wasn't planned, not careful, not even fully understood, just a soft, fleeting collision, clumsy and uncertain. Haruka's first kiss. Time seemed to pause. Haruka's eyes widened, her body going completely still as her mind struggled to catch up with what had just happened. Irie froze too. Her hands, still holding Haruka, tightened slightly in reflex, steadying her, grounding her. And then, she felt it, the unexpected warmth beneath her palms. Soft, real, the realization hit her all at once. Haruka pulled back abruptly. I'm sorry, she stammered, her face flushed deep with embarrassment, her voice trembling. She couldn't look at Irie. Her heart was racing wildly. I didn't mean to, I just slipped. She couldn't finish. Irie didn't move. For once, she had no clever reply. No teasing remark. Only the echo of that brief contact lingering in her senses. And something else. A strange, sudden spark that ran through her. Quick, unfamiliar, impossible to ignore. The air between them shifted. Quiet, heavy, awkward. Haruka turned away quickly, her hands trembling slightly as she tried to steady her breathing. What have I done? Behind her, Irie slowly withdrew her hands. Her expression had changed. Not playful, not careless. Something softer, something uncertain. She glanced at Haruka, then looked away, just as quickly. Neither of them spoke, but something had happened. Something small, something fragile, something that would not be forgotten. Chapter 4, Small Coins, Big Lessons. Morning arrived gently over Kamikawa, as though the town itself understood the need for softness after storms, both the kind that tore through tents, and the kind that lingered quietly in the heart. Irie sat cross-legged on the floor of their small inn room, staring into her open bag with growing concern. This, she said dramatically, is a financial crisis. Haruka, sitting neatly beside her, glanced inside. There were a few coins, a crumpled receipt, and a snack wrapper that had long since served its purpose. We'll manage, Haruka said calmly. Irie looked at her. That's what people say right before they absolutely do not manage. They spent the next hour attempting to plan their next destination, which quickly turned into chaos. We could go north, Irie suggested. With what money? Haruka asked. South, then. That's the same problem. Irie frowned. What about staying exactly where we are but calling it strategic pause? Haruka almost smiled. By midday, reality had settled in. They needed money, which meant work. The small cafe at the corner of the street was the first to take them in. The owner, a kind but firm woman, looked them over carefully before nodding. "You can help for a few days," she said. "Simple work." Irie beamed. "We are extremely capable." Haruka, beside her, said nothing. Irie was not extremely capable. Not even slightly. Within the first hour, she had nearly dropped an entire tray of tea, mixed up orders twice, smiled confidently while doing the wrong thing. "I'm contributing," she insisted, holding a towel as though it were a symbol of dignity. "You're creating problems," Haruka replied gently. Haruka, on the other hand, was quietly excellent. She moved efficiently, spoke politely, and handled every task with calm precision. Customers liked her immediately. Irie watched this with growing amazement. "Where did you learn all this?" she asked. Haruka shrugged slightly. "At home, mostly." Irie leaned against the counter, watching her a little longer than necessary. "You're kind of amazing," she said, without teasing this time. Haruka paused. Her cheeks warmed. "I'm just used to it." The townspeople, of course, noticed them. Two young women, working together, moving in quiet harmony despite one of them being a walking disaster. "It didn't take long. You two make a lovely couple," an elderly customer said casually, sipping her tea. Haruka froze. "AC couple." Irie grinned instantly. "We do, don't we?" Haruka turned bright red. "Irie, what?" Irie shrugged, completely unbothered. "It's efficient. We already argue like one." "We do not. Give it time." The teasing continued throughout the day. Every mistaken assumption only made Haruka more flustered, and Irie more amused. But beneath it, something softer was forming, something quieter. Days passed like this. Simple, predictable, warm. They worked, ate, walked through the town, and rested without the urgency of running anywhere. And slowly, Haruka began to notice something strange. She was happy, not the overwhelming, frightening kind of happiness that came with big decisions. But something gentler, something steady. She liked this. Being here, with Irie. When they finally boarded another train, it felt different from the first time. There was no panic, no desperate escape, only a quiet step forward. The train hummed softly as it moved, carrying them through stretches of open land and distant hills. Across from them sat an elderly woman, her posture relaxed, her eyes kind and observant. "You're traveling together?" she asked. Irie answered first, naturally. "Of course. Grand adventure." Haruka smiled faintly. The woman studied them for a moment, then chuckled softly. "You remind me of myself," she said. "A long time ago." Irie leaned forward immediately. "Were you also incredibly charming and slightly irresponsible?" Haruka sighed quietly. The woman laughed. "Something like that." They spoke for a while. About travel. About youth. About choices. Then the woman said something that lingered. "Freedom isn't running away," she said gently. "It's choosing where to stand, and why." Haruka fell silent. The words settled deep within her. She looked out the window. At the passing scenery. At the distance she had already traveled. At the life she had left behind. For the first time, it didn't feel like escape. It felt like a beginning. She glanced at Irie, who was, at that moment, attempting to balance a snack on her knee and failing spectacularly. Haruka smiled. Softly. Maybe freedom wasn't about leaving everything behind. Maybe, it was about choosing to move forward. And this time, Haruka made that choice consciously. Not out of fear, not out of impulse, but because she wanted to. The train moved forward, and so did they. Chapter 5, Lanterns, Laughter, and Lingering Things. By the time they arrived at the next town, the evening sky was already glowing. Soft lights flickered in the distance. Lanterns, rows and rows of them, swaying gently like little floating stars brought down to earth. The streets were alive, lined with food stalls, laughter, music, and the warm hum of celebration. A festival. Irie's eyes lit up instantly. "We are absolutely not missing this." Haruka blinked, taking in the scene. "We just got here." "Exactly," Irie said, already pulling her forward. "Perfect timing." "You're going to lose," Haruka said, watching Irie confidently step up to a game stall. "I don't lose," Irie replied, already throwing a ring. She missed. Badly. That didn't count. It clearly counted. It was a warm-up. Haruka folded her arms. "You've had 5 warm-ups. Irie narrowed her eyes. You're very unsupportive for someone who benefits from my victories. You haven't had any. Irie turned, pointing at the game. You try. Haruka sighed, and then, effortlessly, won. Irie stared at her. You've been hiding this from me. I just followed the instructions. Betrayal, Irie said softly. Pure betrayal. Haruka laughed. Not the quiet, careful kind. Something freer. And Irie felt it, like a flicker under her skin. Careful. Haruka turned suddenly, nearly bumping into someone. A boy, about their age, holding drinks and smiling like it was the easiest thing in the world. Sorry, Haruka said quickly. No problem, he said. You're new here, right? And just like that, conversation started. Irie didn't mean to step back. She just did. Watched as Haruka nodded, smiled, answered questions. Watched as the boy joked, and Haruka laughed. Again, and again. Not the small, polite smile she usually gave. Something brighter, open, easy. It sat wrong. Irie crossed her arms, tilting her head slightly as she observed them. Oh, I see how it is, she muttered under her breath. Haruka didn't hear her. Of course she didn't. She was busy laughing. And this stall has the best food, the boy was saying. Really? Haruka asked, leaning in slightly. Yeah, I can show you. Irie stepped in. Smooth, casual, close. She doesn't need a guide, Irie said lightly, slipping between them just enough to shift the space. She has me. Haruka blinked. Irie, what? Irie smiled, but her hand found Haruka's sleeve, tugging it gently. You're wandering off. I wasn't. You were, Irie said, softer now, but firmer. The boy laughed awkwardly. I'll see you around. And just like that, he was gone. Haruka turned to her. That was rude. I saved you. From what? Irie paused. Good question. Bad food, she said finally. Haruka frowned. You just said that stall was good. Irie clicked her tongue. Details. They walked again. But something had shifted. Irie stayed closer now. Too close to be accidental. Her shoulder brushed Haruka's more often than necessary. Her hand lingered when she pointed something out. Her voice dropped slightly when she leaned in to speak. Possessive. No, just something else. You're acting strange, Haruka said quietly. Am I? Yes. Irie smirked. Maybe I just don't like being ignored. I wasn't ignoring you. You were laughing at someone else's jokes, Irie replied. Unacceptable. Haruka stared at her, then laughed again. And somehow, that made it worse. Come on, Irie said abruptly. Let's get out of here. They slipped away from the crowd, into a quieter stretch where lanterns hung lower and the noise softened into a distant hum. Fireworks burst overhead. Light spilled across Haruka's face. Gold, then red, then white. Reflected in her eyes. It's beautiful, she whispered. Irie didn't look up. She was already looking at her. Without thinking, she reached out, caught Haruka's hand. Haruka froze, but didn't pull away. Their fingers fit too easily. Too naturally. Irie, Haruka's voice was soft, almost unsteady. Irie swallowed. Yeah, Haruka turned toward her. Close now. Too close. I need to tell you something. Something in Irie's chest tightened. Not playful, not light, real. Make it quick, Irie said, attempting a smile. Before I get distracted again. I'm serious. I know. But Irie didn't move. Didn't let go. Haruka took a breath. Her fingers tightened slightly around Irie's. A firework exploded overhead. Loud. Bright. And Irie flinched just enough to break the moment. Okay, that one was actually impressive, she said quickly. Silence. Haruka's grip loosened. Yeah, and just like that, it slipped away. Again. That night, the room felt smaller. Quieter. More dangerous. They sat too close. Not touching, but aware of everything. Irie, Haruka said softly. I meant what I said earlier. Which part? There were a lot of parts. Haruka exhaled slowly. The important part. Irie turned to her. This time, she didn't interrupt. Haruka started. Her voice trembled. Her eyes didn't leave Irie's. And Irie felt it again. That pull. That strange, unfamiliar tension winding tighter in her chest. You're really bad at starting sentences, Irie said suddenly. The moment cracked. Haruka blinked. Then laughed. Because what else could she do? Yeah, she said. but it hurt this time. Later, when the night turned colder, they shared a blanket. Closer now. Too close. Irie shifted. Their legs brushed. Haruka stiffened. Then, she moved away. Fast. Irie frowned immediately. Okay, what is that? Haruka looked away. Nothing. No, you keep doing that. Doing what? That, Irie said, sharper now. Pulling away like I'm, what? Dangerous. You're not. Then why won't you stay? The question hung between them. Heavy. Unavoidable. Haruka's hands tightened around the blanket. Her heart was racing. This was it. No more running. She stopped. Again. Irie stared at her. Frustration flickered. But beneath it, something softer. Something almost afraid. Forget it, Haruka whispered. And turned away. Silence filled the room. Irie lay back slowly, staring at the ceiling. Her thoughts refused to settle. The way Haruka had looked at her. The way she kept stopping. The way she pulled away. Like she was holding something too big to say. Irie exhaled slowly. Next time, she murmured under her breath. No jokes. No interruptions. Chapter 6, When the Rain Refuses to Stop. Morning arrived like something easily broken. Not gentle, just careful. As though even the air feared disturbing what lingered between them. They walked anyway. A narrow path stretched ahead, bordered by tall trees and damp earth that still held the memory of last night's rain. The world felt hushed, suspended, waiting. Irie nudged a stone along the path. You used to be quieter in college. Haruka glanced at her. I still am. Not with me. There was no teasing in it. Only truth. They walked in silence for a while. Then Haruka spoke. My brother used to cry every time I left for college, she said softly. He'd cling to me like I'd disappear if he let go. Irie looked at her. My sister would copy him, Haruka added with a faint smile. Even when she didn't understand why. That sounds exhausting, Irie said lightly. It was, Haruka admitted. Then, quieter, but I liked being needed. Irie slowed. And now, Haruka's gaze dropped. Now I don't know who I am without it. The honesty settled between them, bare and unguarded. For once, Irie didn't interrupt. She simply listened. I never planned to leave, Haruka continued. It felt selfish, like I was abandoning something important. A pause. Then you came. Irie blinked. For a moment, everything felt possible, Haruka said. Like I could become someone else. Something tightened in Irie's chest. Not pride. Something heavier. The sky darkened without warning. Rain followed, sudden, merciless. Run, Irie said, catching Haruka's wrist. They rushed through the downpour until they reached a small shrine tucked between the trees. By the time they stepped inside, they were soaked through. Rain crashed around them, loud, unrelenting. They stood too close, breathing uneven. Irie turned to her. No hesitation this time. What were you trying to say? Haruka stiffened. What? Last night, at the festival, in the room, Irie's voice sharpened. You keep starting something and then stopping. What is it? It's nothing. Stop saying that. The word struck harder than intended. Haruka flinched. I don't know how to say it. She snapped, her voice breaking. Then try. Irie shot back. Because it's clearly not nothing. Haruka's hands trembled. I'm tired, she said, her voice cracking. Tired of feeling like this. Like what? Like I'm standing on the edge of something I can't cross, she cried. Like if I say it, everything will fall apart. Irie went still. Then say it anyway. I can't. Why not? Haruka's thoughts crashed into each other, louder than the rain. Because I love you. Because you won't stay. Because you don't even see it. I just can't. She shouted instead, tears spilling freely. Why are you forcing me? Because you keep pushing me away. Irie snapped. You pull me close, then act like I'm the problem. I'm not blaming you. It feels like you are. The rain roared. Or perhaps it was just them. I don't understand you, Irie said, quieter now, raw. One moment you're here, the next, it's like you've already left. Haruka let out a hollow laugh. Maybe I have. The words struck deep. Silence followed, sharp enough to wound. Haruka's phone buzzed. The sound cut through everything. She answered. And Irie watched her expression change. Fall. Break. What happened? Irie asked, softer now. Haruka swallowed. Things are bad at home, she whispered. The harvest is failing, they can't manage alone. Her voice trembled. My brother asked if I forgot him. Something twisted inside Irie. Tight. Unfamiliar. I shouldn't be here, Haruka said. The words came quickly now, unraveling. I knew it was selfish. I knew, and I still left. That doesn't make you wrong, Irie said sharply. It does to me, Haruka cried. They need me. And what about you? Irie shot back. Do you not get to matter? I don't matter more than them. You matter just as much. That's easy for you to say. Irie froze. What's that supposed to mean? It means you don't have anything tying you down. Haruka said, her voice shaking. You can leave, wander, call it freedom. And you think that costs me nothing. Irie cut in, her voice low, dangerous. You think I don't lose things too? At least you get to choose. I am choosing. Haruka shook her head. No, she said. You're running. You just make it sound better. The words landed. Hard. Don't, Irie said quietly. But Haruka didn't stop. Your stories, your jokes, none of it feels real, she said, her voice breaking. It's like you're afraid to stand still long enough to feel anything. Something in Irie snapped. At least I try to live. She fired back. You don't even let yourself try. Haruka recoiled. I stayed because of you. Irie continued, the words spilling out. I came after you. I chose this, with you, and now you're ready to leave like it meant nothing. It doesn't mean nothing, Haruka cried. Then why are you leaving? Because I have people who need me. She shouted. My life isn't just about what I want. And mine is. Irie shot back. Silence fell. Heavy. Breathless. I think I should go back, Haruka said at last. Quiet. Final. Irie stared at her. Say that again. I should go home, Haruka repeated. This was a mistake. Irie let out a sharp, hollow laugh. That's it, she said. You just decide that and everything ends. It's not ending. It is to me, Irie snapped. Because I thought. She stopped. Too close to something real. What? Haruka whispered. Irie looked away. Nothing. The rain softened. But the damage remained. Haruka turned first. Because staying hurt more. And Irie didn't follow. For the first time since they began. They stood apart. Not just in distance. But in something deeper. Something cracked. And neither of them knew if it could still be mended. Chapter 7, The Space You Leave Behind. They did not walk back together. Not really. The path that had felt quiet in the morning now stretched between them like something endless. Irie walked ahead at first, out of habit, perhaps, but this time she didn't reach back. Didn't check if Haruka was keeping up. And Haruka didn't try to close the distance. By the time they reached the town, the festival lights were gone. Lanterns had been taken down. Stalls dismantled. The streets looked ordinary again, almost unfamiliar in their stillness. Like something beautiful had happened there. And then quietly disappeared. I'll check the train schedule, Haruka said. Her voice was steady, too steady. Irie nodded. Yeah, that was all. They stood outside the station for a moment longer than necessary, as if waiting for something else to be said. Nothing came. Inside, the world moved as usual. Tickets printed. Announcements echoed. People passed without noticing the quiet fracture between two girls standing too close, and yet impossibly far apart. The next train leaves in 40 minutes, Haruka said. Irie nodded again. Okay. Silence settled. Awkward. Unfamiliar. I'll get something to eat, Irie muttered. Haruka nodded. Okay. They separated without looking back. Irie didn't go far, just to a vending machine at the corner of the platform. She stared at the rows of drinks longer than necessary. Didn't choose anything. This was your idea, she told herself. Freedom. Movement. No attachments. So why did it feel wrong? She leaned back against the machine, exhaling sharply. Idiot, she muttered. She didn't know if she meant Haruka or herself. Across the station, Haruka sat alone on a bench. Her phone rested in her lap, the last message from home still open. When are you coming back? Her brother's words. Simple. Heavy. She pressed her lips together. Tried to steady her breathing. Tried not to think about the shrine, the rain, Irie's voice. I stayed because of you. Her chest tightened. I should go back, she whispered to herself. This was right. This was responsible. This was safe. Then why did it hurt like something was being torn away? She closed her eyes, and for a moment, she almost stood up, almost walked away, without saying anything, but her feet didn't move. Back near the vending machine, Irie finally pressed a button at random. The drink dropped with a dull thud. She didn't pick it up. This was a mistake. Haruka's words echoed in her mind. Something twisted sharply in her chest. Was it? Irie murmured. She pushed herself upright and walked back. Slower this time, like each step required thought. Haruka noticed her before she spoke. Looked up, then quickly away. I got you something, Irie said, holding out the drink. Haruka blinked. You don't even know what I like. Neither do you, Irie replied. So we're even. A small pause. Then, Haruka took it. Their fingers brushed. Both of them felt it. Neither of them reacted. Thanks. Yeah. They sat side by side on the bench. Not touching. Close enough to feel the space between them. 40 minutes, Irie said. I know. Another silence. A train passed on the opposite platform. Wind rushed through, loud and sudden. Haruka's hand tightened slightly around the drink. I'm sorry. The words came quietly. Irie didn't look at her. For what? For everything, Haruka said. For leaving. For saying those things. Irie let out a short breath. You weren't wrong. Haruka turned to her, startled. I was. No, Irie said, shaking her head slightly. You just said it badly. Haruka frowned faintly. That doesn't make it better. It does a little. A pause. Then, I shouldn't have said you were running, Haruka added. Irie's jaw tightened. Maybe I am. Haruka blinked. Irie leaned back, staring at the ceiling. I don't stay anywhere long enough to figure things out, she said quietly. It's easier that way. Her voice softened. Nothing gets complicated if you keep moving. Haruka looked at her. Really looked. And is this complicated? She asked gently. Irie didn't answer immediately. Her fingers curled slightly against her sleeve. Yeah, she said at last. The word lingered. Haruka's chest tightened. I didn't mean to make things harder for you, she said softly. Irie let out a quiet laugh. You didn't. She turned her head slightly. I did that myself. The announcement for their train echoed through the station. 10 minutes. Haruka looked down at her hands. I don't know what I'm supposed to do, she admitted. For once, I don't know either, Irie replied. They sat in that shared uncertainty. Not arguing, not resolving, just existing in it. Will you go back? Irie asked suddenly. Haruka hesitated. I think I have to. Irie nodded slowly. Yeah, it wasn't agreement, just acceptance. The train arrived with a low rumble. Doors sliding open, people moving, time refusing to wait. Haruka stood. Irie didn't. For a moment, Haruka just looked at her. Like she was trying to remember something. Or decide something. Irie looked up. Haruka's lips parted. The words were there, so close. Because I love you. But fear, still won. Take care of yourself, she said instead. Irie held her gaze. Something flickered in her eyes. Gone too quickly. You too. Haruka stepped back, then turned, and walked toward the train. Irie watched her go, didn't move, didn't call out. The doors closed, the train pulled away, and just like that, Haruka was gone. The platform felt emptier than it should have. Quieter, colder. Irie exhaled slowly, her hand tightened around nothing. Idiot, she muttered again. This time, she knew exactly who she meant. For the first time since this journey began, Irie stood still, and for the first time, she felt it clearly, the absence, not of adventure, not of movement, but of her. Chapter 8, What Remains in Silence. Haruka returned to a life that had never left her. The house was just as she remembered, warm with the scent of cooked rice, alive with small, familiar noises. Her brother ran to her the moment she stepped inside, arms wrapping tightly around her waist as if afraid she might disappear again. You came back, he said, voice muffled against her. Her sister clung to her sleeve, quieter but no less certain. Haruka smiled, bending to hold them both. I told you I would. The lie slipped out gently. It didn't sound like one. Days folded into routine with quiet obedience. Morning chores, midday heat, evenings spent entangling small arguments between her siblings, listening to their stories, tucking them into bed. Her hands moved with practiced ease, her voice soft and steady, everything exactly as it had always been. Everything she was supposed to be. "You're working too much," her mother said one afternoon, watching her from the doorway. "I'm fine. You don't have to prove anything." Haruka paused, fingers tightening slightly around the clock she was ringing. "I'm not." Her mother didn't reply, but the look lingered. That night, the house fell quiet. Her siblings slept beside her, one small hand resting against her arm, as if to confirm she was still there. Haruka stared at the ceiling. Wide awake. The silence felt different now. Not peaceful, not comforting, just empty. She turned her head slightly. For a moment, her mind betrayed her. She almost expected to see someone there. Careless, restless, breathing softly in sleep. Irie. Haruka closed her eyes tightly. Her chest ached in a way she hadn't prepared for. She had come back. She had done the right thing. So why did it feel like she had left something behind? Her fingers curled into the bedsheet. Unsteady. Because I love you. Because you won't stay. Because you don't even see it. The thoughts came uninvited. Sharp. Unforgiving. Haruka pressed her hand over her mouth, as if she could stop them from escaping. As if naming them would make them real. Irreversible. "I made the right choice," she whispered into the dark. But the words didn't settle. They drifted. Uncertain. Miles away. Irie was already moving again. The train doors slid open, and she stepped out into another unfamiliar town without looking back. That part hadn't changed. Movement was easy. Stopping was not. The streets were lively enough, shops open, people passing, the quiet rhythm of everyday life unfolding around her. Irie walked through it all like she didn't belong to any of it. She tried. She really did. She wandered further, letting the streets carry her where they would. A small park appeared at the edge of town, quiet except for the rustling of leaves and the distant sound of children playing. Irie sat down on a bench. Leaned forward. Waited. For what? She didn't know. Usually, this was enough. A new place. A new moment. Something to fill the silence. But now, the silence stayed. Her gaze drifted to the empty space beside her. It felt noticeable, annoyingly so. Irie leaned back slowly, staring up at the sky. Since when did I get this boring? The answer came quietly. Since she left. Irie exhaled sharply, turning her head away as if she could shake the thought loose. "Don't start," she muttered. But it had already begun. The way Haruka laughed. The way she hesitated before speaking. The way she looked like she was holding something fragile inside her. Something Irie had never tried hard enough to understand. Irie sat up abruptly. "This is ridiculous." Her hand moved before she could stop it. She pulled out her phone. Unlocked it. Haruka's name. Still there. Still. Annoyingly important. Irie frowned at the screen. "Okay," she muttered, "we're going to send a completely normal message like a completely normal person." She typed. "Did you get home?" She stared at it. Wow. Boring. Who wrote this? A government official. She erased it. Tried again. "You really just left like that?" Irie squinted. "Number, that sounds like I care too much. Which I obviously don't. At all. Zero caring. Delete." She groaned, dropping her head back. "Why is this hard? I've argued with strangers for fun. I once convinced a guy the first was a travel expert. I got lost 10 minutes later." Silence. "This is her fault," Irie muttered. "She made things weird by having feelings. Very inconvenient." Her thumb hovered again. Didn't move. Across the distance. Haruka sat by the window, her phone resting in her hands. Unlocked. Empty. The night air drifted in softly, brushing against her skin. She barely noticed. Her fingers trembled slightly as she typed. "Did you reach safely?" She stared at the words. Too formal. Too distant. Erase. Again. "I'm sorry." She swallowed. Too small. Delete. Her grip tightened around the phone. "I don't know how to talk to you," she whispered. The admission felt heavier than it should have. Because with Irie, it had always been easy. Until it wasn't. Her screen dimmed, then darkened. Haruka didn't turn it back on. Elsewhere. Irie did the same. "Are you okay?" Elsewhere. Irie was still staring at hers. Okay, last attempt, she muttered. Final boss level. Are you okay? She typed it quickly this time. Before she could think. Before she could stop herself. Her thumb hovered over the send button. Just one tap. That was all. Why does that feel like I just confessed something? She whispered. She paused. Number. I'll do it later. She locked her phone and dropped it onto the bed. Great, she muttered, staring up. Running away again. Very impressive. She sighed. That's not a good thing. 2 phones. 2 unsent messages. And between them, everything they could not say. Everything they were too afraid to lose. The distance stretched on. Quiet. Unforgiving. Chapter 9, Almost. Haruka thought coming back would fix everything. It didn't. The house was the same, warm, noisy, full. Her brother hugged her tightly. Her sister followed her everywhere. Her mother watched her with quiet relief. Everything was right. But Haruka didn't feel right. You seem distracted, her mother said one evening. I'm fine. Her mother paused, then said gently. There's a proposal. Haruka froze. A good family. A good boy. You don't have to answer now. Just think about it. Think. Haruka lowered her eyes. Okay. But her chest felt tight. That night, she took out the envelope hidden under her pillow. Money. Saved slowly. Secretly. I was going to leave, she whispered. Not because of Irie. Not entirely. Before everything, she had already wanted more. Already searched for places. Already imagined a life beyond this one. Irie hadn't created that desire. She had only given it courage. Haruka closed her eyes. Then why am I scared? Miles away, Irie stood on a train platform, staring at her ticket. Okay, she muttered. This is a good idea. Totally smart. Very mature. She paused. Why am I nervous? I've done worse things. Destination. Haruka's town. I'm not running, Irie said. A beat. Okay, I am running. But in a good direction this time. She got on the train. Irie sat down, then immediately stood up again. Sat again. Calm down, she told herself. You're just going to talk. Not fight a dragon. A pause. Why does talking feel harder? She leaned back. I messed up, she admitted quietly. Then quickly added. But I can fix it. Maybe. Hopefully. The train slowed. At the same time, Haruka stood on another platform. A small bag on her shoulder. A quiet decision in her heart. She hadn't accepted the proposal. Hadn't refused it either. She had just stepped out. I'll come back, she had told her mother. But this time, she meant it differently. The train arrived. Haruka stepped in. Irie stepped out. Same station. Different platforms. Minutes apart. Irie stretched, looking around. All right. Step 1, find Haruka. Step 2, say something normal. Step 3, don't embarrass yourself. She frowned. Step 3 is already in danger. She started walking. The train doors closed. Haruka sat by the window. The train began to move. Irie slowed. Something felt off. She turned. Too late. The train was already leaving. Haruka looked out the window. For a second, her chest tightened, like she missed something. Then it passed. Irie stared at the moving train. That felt important, she muttered. Then shook her head. No time. Find her first. Panic later. The distance stayed close, but not enough. 2 people moving, 2 hearts changing, and slowly, the truth became clear. This journey was never about travel. Never about running away. It was about choosing where you belong, and maybe that place was each other. Chapter 10, Found at Last. Irie arrived at Haruka's house slightly out of breath and entirely unprepared for emotional stability. She knocked. The door opened. Haruka's mother blinked. Oh, you're Irie, right? Irie froze. Wow, I have a reputation. That's concerning. A pause. Then quickly, is Haruka here? Please say yes. I've had a long day, and I'm emotionally fragile. She just left, her mother said gently. She went toward the station. Irie stared. Of course she did. She turned around immediately. Great. Perfect timing. Amazing. I love this for me. Then she broke into a run. Wait. Her mother called. Irie didn't stop. Tell her I came dramatically. She shouted back. It's important. The road blurred beneath her feet. Why is she always moving? Irie panted. Can she not stay in one place for 5 minutes? Just 5. A pause. Okay, that's hypocritical. But still. By the time she reached the station, she was breathing hard, slightly disheveled, and very close to questioning all her life choices. She scanned the platform. Nothing. No, 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 she muttered. Don't do this. Not again. I refuse to have another tragic timing moment. I am not that kind of story. Irie did not waste time thinking. Which was, historically, her most reliable decision-making strategy. Irie nodded, then paused, then snapped her fingers. The fort town. Of course. Where else would Haruka go when she didn't know where to go? Back to where things had started changing. Wow, Irie muttered, already turning away. I'm actually using logic. This is new. She boarded the next train without overthinking it. Sat down. Stood up again. Sat again. Okay, she whispered to herself. Simple plan. Find Haruka. Say something meaningful. Don't ruin everything in 5 seconds. A pause. 4 seconds is acceptable. The train ride felt too long. Every stop annoyed her. Every second stretched. When the train finally stopped at the small town, Irie stepped out the moment the doors opened, scanning the platform like she expected the universe to cooperate for once. Okay, she muttered. Be reasonable. She might not even be. Thud. Oof. Irie stumbled forward, colliding straight into someone. Sorry, I wasn't looking. She stopped. Irie stumbled back, ready to apologize dramatically. Then froze. Haruka. They stared at each other. For a moment, neither spoke. Irie blinked once. Okay, she said slowly. Either I've finally lost my mind, or this is excellent timing. Haruka's lips parted slightly. Irie. Irie pointed at her. You, stay there. Don't move. I just ran. I need a second to recover my dignity. She bent slightly, hands on her knees, breathing. Okay. Dignity not recovered. We move on. Haruka let out a soft, disbelieving laugh. You came back. Irie straightened. Yeah, I did. A beat. Took me a while. I had to argue with myself first. I lost, by the way. Haruka's eyes softened. Why? Irie opened her mouth, then paused. For once, no joke came out. Because you left, she said quietly. Haruka's breath caught. You left, Irie continued, her voice steadier now. And everything got weird. A small, awkward gesture. Like, the world didn't break or anything. It just got really boring. Which is worse. Haruka almost smiled. Almost. I kept thinking. Irie rubbed the back of her neck. If I didn't come find you now, I'd regret it. Like forever regret it. The dramatic kind. Silence settled. But this time, it wasn't empty. Haruka took a small step closer. I tried to leave again, she admitted softly. Irie blinked. You did. Haruka nodded. But not to run away. Her fingers tightened slightly. I wanted to choose for myself, she said. Not because I was scared. Not because someone told me to. A pause. Her voice trembled. Just slightly. And I realized, what I wanted most was something I was too afraid to say. Irie didn't interrupt. Didn't joke. Didn't move. Haruka took another step closer. Close enough now. I love you. The words landed softly, but they didn't need force. They were already everything. Irie froze. For once. Completely, utterly speechless. Oh, she said. A pause. Oh, Haruka's breath wavered. You don't have to say anything. I just needed to tell you. Irie blinked again, then laughed softly, not mocking, not careless, just overwhelmed. Okay, she said. Give me a second. My brain is loading. This is important. Haruka looked like she might cry and laugh at the same time. Irie exhaled slowly, then stepped forward. I don't know how to do this properly, she admitted. Like, feelings, staying, all of that. I'm bad at it. A small pause. Her voice softened. But I know I didn't like it when you weren't there. Haruka's eyes filled. And I know I came all the way back because of you, Irie added. Which is very inconvenient, by the way. A small, shaky laugh escaped Haruka. So, I don't know what this is supposed to look like, Irie said. Then, more quietly, but I want to stay. With you. That was enough. Haruka stepped forward. And this time, she didn't hesitate. She hugged Irie tightly. Irie froze for half a second. then hugged her back, just as tightly. Okay, Irie murmured into her shoulder. This feels right. Slightly overwhelming, but right. Haruka laughed softly against her. When they pulled back, the distance didn't return. Irie hesitated, just for a moment, then leaned in. Their kiss was soft, intentional, nothing like the accidental one before. It lingered, warm, certain. When they parted, Irie blinked. Okay, she said, that was definitely worth the emotional crisis. Haruka laughed through her tears. They didn't let go of each other's hands. So, Irie said after a moment, what now? Haruka wiped her eyes gently. I don't know. A pause. But I want to figure it out. Irie nodded. Good. Same. She tilted her head slightly. Maybe we start with something simple. Like, not running away. Haruka smiled. And maybe, she added, I could study in the city. Or find work. Irie's eyes lit up. Perfect. I also need a job. Preferably one that doesn't require emotional maturity. Haruka laughed. Then we'll figure it out, she said softly. Together, Irie asked. Haruka squeezed her hand. Together. Later, they sat side by side on a train. Not chasing, not running, just staying. Irie glanced at her. So, do we know where we're going this time? Haruka shook her head, smiling. Not really. Irie leaned back. Good. That would have been suspicious. Haruka laughed softly. Outside, the world moved. But this time, they didn't feel lost. They had already found what mattered. And they weren't letting go.